And once he saw what I was tattooing, because he was over kicking it with Bob, he almost got pissed. He looked at me. He's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "Did you know Bob's over there and is tattooing the exact same portrait as you? The only difference is he's 6 hours ahead of you." And I was like,
so he was also on the chin drop shadow then.
Yeah, right. Yeah. How are you guys?
Good. It's good to have you back. How was the show?
It was good. It was stressful a little bit. Driving around Chicago fucking blows. But ultimately it was good. I've never been to a show quite that large, so that was interesting. And just I don't know, every time I get back from a show, it's like I leave one body here and then I turn into this other individual, and then boom, I'm off to the show. And it's like I've been noticing this pattern. One, like, I'm excited to be there, but I also got tunnel vision, so it's like a serious excitedness, and a little bit of my ego flares up, and it's like, I'm the cool dude that everyone's coming with on this trip. And then like Megan, she is always the navigator, but she doesn't, I think she's excited and forgets to like check out details, and I'm guilty of it too. But like little things like say last night, all of us were guilty of it. We were going to go to the Sears Tower and walk out on that glass platform. So we rode and looked at the architecture on the riverboat, got off the riverboat, and we're like, fuck it, we're going to walk to the Sears Tower. So we walk all the way across downtown to get to the Sears Tower, to find out that we just missed it, and we were supposed to book earlier in the day. And the next one coming would be at 7 p.m. and they leave you up there for 3 hours. So it's like, one, who the fuck wants to stay up there for 3 hours?
Yeah, why the fuck? Well, that's weird.
Right.
That's one of those things where you're like, hey, this is pretty cool. Let's go get some sandwiches. Like 3 hours? What the fuck?
I know. But see, that's like that small morsel of information that all of us neglected to look at. And so it happens like that. So we'll go to restaurants, and sometimes the restaurants will need reservations, but it's like this on every trip, and it boils down to like lack of communication on either end. And it ends up being resentful and anger being taken out on someone. And then to top that off, like boom, we first get there, and a couple of the people have never been to conventions, my client, and then a couple of my close friends came with us. So like the routine is, in my head, I know this, and I know Megan knows it too, but until it's communicated, it's like no one really knows. I get out of the car, I walk to the information booth, I get my information, I come back to the car, and then I inform everyone where my booth's at. So like, boom, I go to do that, and I'm walking back to my booth. Keep in mind, this is like a fucking 800 booth show, so it's far.
That was my next question, is when you say large, like how large? Like that's fucking huge. Evergreen is 300 booths, and I feel like it's pretty big. I've been told that I always looked at Evergreen as big, but I've been told like, oh, I like the show, it's a good smaller size. To me, it's huge, but 800 booths, you got to think most booths, couple artists, right?
Right.
1,600 artists.
Yeah, it was. I didn't even walk down every aisle, and I took Sunday just to kick it.
Sure.
And so, like, I'm walking back from the information booth, and Megan yells at me, and I look, and she's already walked the whole way across the convention from where I parked at. Because this place is big. Like, you're not pulling into loading docks. You actually pull into the convention and fucking unload there. So I instantly, I didn't communicate because I just assumed she read my mind and knew what the plan was. So I'm already like, God damn it, why the fuck did you bring all the shit? Well, you're gonna have to walk it back to my booth. And I fucking walked off, like, not carrying none of my shit to teach them a lesson in my in my lack of communication. So boom, we get there and set up. Then we go out and enjoy Chicago for a little bit. Like, I always like being the early bird. So then, like, we come in the next morning and fucking like health department was, I think, like 9 to 12. Never done a show this big again, I mentioned. And sat around to like the doors open at 2. It hits, it's 2, and like I should like be, you know, getting ready to tattoo. My stencil's dried for like an hour. So fucking, I'm like, well, I gotta find the fucking health inspector. Like, I'm not gonna be able to tattoo today. So I had to find him, and he's got a caravan of artists behind him that, you know, to get in line, we're gonna go around to each booth and make sure he doesn't forget who we are. So we do that. He comes back, checks me out, and I'm like, finally. It's like 2:30, almost 3, and I sat down, turned my machine on, fucking wet my paper towel, and I start like stretching and just looking, seeing my method of attack. And I'm looking, I'm doing a tattoo of Inky Johnson from the Tennessee Volunteers. He no longer plays. He was going to be #1 draft pick. Now he's a motivational speaker. Dude's real cool.
Nice.
And my client is a big Vols fan from Oak Ridge, which is right by Knoxville. And the fucking 2 and the 9's backwards. And I'm like, oh, shit. God damn it. This stencil's been on there for fucking like an hour and a half. Dude, drying backwards. And like, man. I'm just grateful that I didn't fucking start packing black in his fucking cleats, dude. And I'm like, I'm going to have to fucking wipe this off. And I did, and then had to leave it sit. And so it started. Didn't, you know, and you had been messaging me throughout the weekend and, you know, just asked me about it. And I had told you at one point, like, it's going good, but, and it's like, and I almost feel like embarrassed or like a jock saying this. Cause like I go to conventions and it's like, fuck the trophy. I want to just do some dope ass tattoo work and slap hands with some good artists and like network and have fun. And midway through the tattoo, I start geeking out over fucking a little piece of fucking plastic, and my name being called over a speaker, and I didn't finish the tattoo, but like I wouldn't have been able to finish it before they kicked us out, but I still tried to like do enough to maybe trick the judges. I don't know. I guess I thought that, you know, I could trick them, but you know, and then after I do that, I always fucking kick myself in the ass, and I'm like, why do I let that always get the best of me when I'm doing like these shows and shit? And I don't know what that is or why that is, but a little bit of that, and man, just like other little things. I basically, you know, earlier I said like I felt like I left my body and then I come in this other body and I'm here, but like that other body that I came with this weekend, it just felt off, and there was a lot of like aggravation between everybody, and I thought the convention was closer to the Navy Pier, and it was up in Rosemont, which is like a northern suburb by O'Hare, and I got a fucking Airbnb that was downtown, so like to travel 8 miles takes 45 minutes,
right, especially in Chicago.
Yeah, man.
You know, I think it's an interesting thing you bring up, because as a traveling musician and a traveling tattoo artist, isn't it weird how like, so for my band, right, like we'd practice at home and everything would be dialed in super tight, right? And then it's like as soon as I fucking get on stage, I just forget everything. It's like, what plugs into what tuning am I in? I feel completely stupid, right? And you have those moments too where like you have these shows that are just, they go great, and then you have shows you pull up and you see the venue and you're so excited, it's packed, and then you play a bad show, and just because it's just everything seems weird. Like the stress of traveling is a real thing. You know what I mean? Like when you fly to a convention too, like no matter how much money I would ever spend on the newest Pelican case, my ink would still fucking explode. You know? It'd explode on the plane, and I'd get there, and just like you said, you put the stencil on backwards. I remember being super stressed out at one of the Paradise Tattoo gatherings. It was just so busy, and I was making back how Matt and I've talked about making hand stencils, right? Like, where we no iPad or anything. And I did it fucking backwards too, the same thing, man. I spent so long, and I'm trying to talk to other people, and I'm making this stencil, and when I flipped the paper up and saw that it was backwards, I just wanted to fucking go home. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's like, it's so interesting how you said you kind of felt like you left your body. I totally understand that feeling, because it's like you get there and you kind of forget how to be hip. You know what I mean? For a moment, right? It's interesting.
Yeah.
I know you've traveled a ton as well, Matt. Have you experienced that as well? Or are you just always cool and collective?
Man, you have to be real careful how I answer this. No. I was going to say, because I can relate to Murphy's Law happening to us.
Yeah.
Wherever we're at in life, at the airport, in another city, at a show, or fucking in my kitchen at home.
Yeah.
Right? So, Murphy's Law, or off days, bad days, and then somehow whoever the group of people you're rolling with, if it's like on you, so strong you can jump off on everyone else. We all have those weird days. I even notice, like, sometimes driving, it's like, have you ever noticed certain days where you witness more car accidents than what you have all month? Like, you're in more traffic jams, like almost as if everyone on the roads today forgot how to drive. So I do notice there's weird pockets of moments that we can go in and out of, like, why is nothing working out tonight? Or, you know.
Yeah, your flight's been canceled 3 times. You got bumped on your seat. It's like you haven't even gotten where you're going yet, and shit's fucked up.
Right. And these are all things that can take us out of the game before the game even is here. Right.
Yeah.
And so on one hand, I can relate to that shit. I think the art and the practice is us noticing it in the moment and right before we decide to fold and allow this to all take us out, because we're throwing our hands up like, what the fuck? Right. That's that moment where we can stop, apply some acceptance, laugh at our own selves, how ridiculous this is, and fucking bounce back. You know what I'm saying? Is the practice for me. So sometimes when things start to go terribly wrong, it's once it gets so bad, then it's easier to like almost relinquish control, or the illusion of control, that I was like, things weren't going the way I wanted to. I'll let go. But I also know this is an attack on destroying the whole fucking weekend. The weekend's just begun, so I still have a choice. Am I just deciding this day is fucked? You know, because that's always bothered me too.
So you're basically talking about a surrender, basically.
A surrender, but not a surrender to defeat.
No. And for our listeners, anytime I say surrender, it's like that cliche, surrender to win. So it's like I could keep fighting this. You know, the monkey that's how they catch monkeys. You know, they carve out a fucking coconut, put a banana inside of it. The monkey reaches in, grabs the banana. You walk up and you kill the monkey. And the whole time, because the monkey refuses to let go of the banana. If he lets go of the banana, he no longer has a fist, and he can slide his hand back out the hole. Yeah. So that's what I mean by surrender. Like, because that surrender didn't come till fucking Sunday fucking night.
Well, then you didn't really surrender. I mean, you did.
It was a process.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I ain't judging. You know, easy for me to say. That's why Josh joked, like, or you just always got your shit together, right? So I can relate to it. I just also know when shit starts to go south, we still have a choice. And it's always I can't tell you, you know, how many people I know that I've witnessed. It's not even noon, and people are like, fuck this day, you know? And so that, and I'm not judging any of us when we have those days, because we all, who can relate to that? It's not even noon, and you're like, fuck this day, I can't wait till it's over, right? But that makes me be like, well, cool. Even though I want to say fuck this day, but this day's not even halfway over. Can I recreate it? Can I fucking still win today? Can we fucking turn this day around? I don't know, but I at least am gonna try or find out, right? And I've realized it starts inside here. And again, if it gets so ridiculous, if I just gotta surrender and laugh about it, like, well, all this shit's, a lot of this is out of my control. Yeah. I couldn't control the flight being canceled or not, right? And this is where we gotta be careful. All the things that are not in our control, we can't allow the things that aren't in our control to make us just fucking cop out on everything that still is in our control.
Right.
Yeah. You know, when you talk about just like finding humor in it, I've definitely done that before, where I went through a time where, you know, many years ago, my wife and I were just dirt poor. Like we just could not make ends meet. We just weren't doing well. And they'd be calling and they'd be like, we're going to turn off your power. We're going to turn off. And we just got to be like, get in fucking line. You know, like, you know, they're like, you know, you can't get blood from a stone. You know, so we literally would just laugh at it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I know hitting that moment. In fact, I traveled recently, you know, when I visited you guys and our rental car situation was just fucking crazy. And it just got to the point where it was so laughable. Even when we finally got the rental car after this massive fiasco, Nikki fucking dropped her phone and left it in the rental fucking, or in the van that took us to the rental vehicle. And we just laughed. We were just like, yeah, of course that happened. Let's just figure out how to fucking get it. You know what I mean? And we calmed down, took a rational breath, and you can use the Find My iPhone and kind of see where it's at. We tracked it down, but
that's right.
Because before that, like, I can be the nicest guy in the world, but unfortunately, the closer you are to me, like the closer you know me, the more of a dick I can be.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? It's like I'm going to be a dick to my family and my closest friends. You know what I mean? Like Sean has had to remind me, he's like, man, you've been really mean to me a couple times. And it's like, it's because I love you. It's because I really know you. You know what I mean? So it hurts me more than it hurts you. You know?
Tony Robbins calls that the law of familiarity. And I always, before I heard him speak on that, I always wondered, because when I was a little kid, my mom would be like, do the dishes. I'd be like, fuck nah, fuck that. Yeah. But then I'd go to your house and eat, and I would do the dishes without your mom ever asking me.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm definitely a calm, and I'm generally a nice guy, but I've been a dick to my wife. I'll be straight up honest. And it's like, later on, I have to be like, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I was a dick. Like, at least I can own it. You know what I mean? But
there was like, man, like that's funny you even said that, because I think I even told you this on the phone call up here. Like, I fucking basically bitched at my dude. But real quick before I go into that fucking funny story, how you were talking about humor, you guys were talking about humor and laughing at it. Like, I noticed too that, like, I go through like this other like cynical ornery phase, is where when shit ain't going my way, my humor, and it's totally immature, and I'm completely aware that it's a defect, but what I'll do is I will cause harm or fucking talk shit about someone that's with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're my buddies and we always wreck on each other, but if I'm already pissed off and shit ain't going right, like, I'll, you know, one of my buddies fucking
the difference, that's you being passive aggressive because you're still pissed because things ain't working out, and that's what you're calling humor. The humor we're talking about,
I know what you're talking about.
Surrender. I'm laughing instead of crying right now.
Right. And so from what I'm saying is I would like to cut that out, because it's basically hurt people. Yeah. So I'm hurt. So now I'm just like making you feel small so I can feel good about myself.
And kind of like Josh, you're going to pick someone that's real close to you to be the target.
Like
Megan or somebody.
Yeah. So if I could just X out the getting free at others' expense, and just fucking see it is for what it is and choose a better path, that would eliminate a lot of resentments that happen on these trips. Because that, you know, I start fucking putting the bullseye on people and pulling the trigger, and they start putting it back on me, and eventually it's going to be one of those times, because Murphy's Law has been set in effect, that when something hits and they're already aware that it's rec session time, and they say that one thing that breaks the camel's back, now like fucking words fly. And that totally fucking happened. Like, for whatever, it was everybody's fault other than mine and my perception of it all weekend long. I fucking tattooed a coworker that does she does the same exact regimen for healing her clients as I do, and for whatever reason, she just don't know how to take care of a tattoo now, and was like, message me all this shit, and I'm like, what? You're a fucking tattoo artist, you know this? And then my client, when I was up there, kept asking me like what to do, only for me to tell him, and he would do the complete opposite, and that got fucking infuriating, into the point to where,
so you're telling me I should put Carmex on my tattoo?
Right. Wash it in the urinal in the public bathroom.
Those urinal cakes are good because it exfoliates.
So, like, I caused harm there, and by this time, everyone's already kind of irritated and we're wanting to go back. It was last night. We're getting ready to leave. And like, I fucking fired some shots and I got fucking loud and was an asshole and realized it. And like, we're all eating quiet, fucking Chicago style dogs at the fucking, well, we were in Chicago, so they were just dogs.
Right. You're like, can I get a Chicago style? They're like, get the fuck out of here.
So we're eating them and we get up because we're riding bikes around downtown and I pull him to the side and he just got off the phone and my wife seen me go up and hug him and I was like, hey man, I owe you an amends, dude. I'm sorry. And I hugged him. I was like, I love you. And she overheard it and thought maybe, one of her friends died. And she was like, whoa, what was that about? And I instantly already got resentments to her. So I turned and I'm like, this is an AB conversation. She's like, well, he just got off the phone. I didn't know someone died. And I'm like, fuck. And I'm like, well, see how this whole thing fucking spirals out of control because now I owe this amends. And everybody's laughing at me. And then she says something hateful to me. And I'm like, now she owes me an amends. And then my other buddy comes up and he's like, well, you owe me amends from fucking this time. And I'm like, Jesus, let's drive off a fucking, I'm going to go ahead and get ran over in traffic.
Thelma and Louise this shit. Yeah.
I know.
Who wants to travel with Hip?
and it's funny because Matt even got some of the blame for some of this because so that coworker that I tattooed, she was telling me she's like totally fucking loves Robbie Ripple's work and has looked up to him and just admires him. And I was like, oh yeah, did you get hip to him on Ink Master? Because I did. And she was like, no, I didn't even know he was on Ink Master. And I'm like, that's cool. And, there's some things we're trying to tighten up on her as well as ourselves. So I already impregnated myself with the thought that, I know he's going to Chicago and I'm going to get him to make a video for her to be more of one to stand in her own authority. Boom, I get there. It's Friday. I'm waiting for the health department and me and Robbie make eye contact. I've never slapped this dude's hand in person before. We've only talked on social media and then on Tattoo Business Mastery. So we make eye contact, but I'm already in my head about the shit. So I just kind of smile and nod at him and he does the same to me. And then I fucking ghost him. And as I'm ghosting him, I'm like, goddamn fucking Matt Clemmer, putting me on fucking pedestal on your stupid fucking coaching shit. Now I gotta fucking act like this spiritual fucking guru while I'm here. And I ignored him all fucking weekend until Sunday. And I come up and I tried to fucking let everything wash away and fucking have an authentic conversation. And I got him to record that video and I sent it to that artist, but I just felt off. I felt like he felt that I was off. And it wasn't the impact that I was wanting to have. And I just feel like it wasn't a good first impression, but ultimately that's probably just me playing fucking mind games with myself. But it's just funny, dude, how man, these little meaningless fucking things can totally play a role in over a 48, 72 hour event that I just robbed myself is what it was. It wasn't Matt's fault. It wasn't my wife's fault. It wasn't my client's fault. It wasn't the artist that I tattooed before I left. It was none of that. It was 100% me. And I kept choosing to fucking, I was like, ooh, that ain't enough. I need more misery and fucking anxiety and stress. And whoa, nope, not quite there yet. Let's keep this ball rolling.
Keep on pushing.
And
I like how by Sunday you had figured it out. You know what I mean? So all of this is a new segue into Hip's new podcast, Sundays with Hip. It just starts out with one of those chiming bells, because on Sunday Hip is good.
That's right. If you're scheduled to get tattooed by Hip on Friday or Saturday, I'm sorry.
You may want to wait till Sunday.
That's right.
Yeah. Sorry, I totally interrupted you there.
No, you're good. Yeah, I'm good.
At any point, because one, I always commend you and I appreciate you. Well, this is after the fact. You're home now. And so you're always really good about owning your shit, sifting through it, and finally being like, man, it ain't no one else's fault but me, right? It ain't Megan's, it ain't the other people, it ain't Clemmer's who ain't even here. You know what I'm saying? Here we are at the end, right? I think sometimes the battle is to notice that sooner, right? Like, why did it take Sunday? Why couldn't you got yourself to this place on Friday night?
No, the surrender came Sunday. I was 100% aware that it was all me, but the self-centered part of me was like craving to fucking hocus pocus, switch the focus and push it on you, push it on them, push it on this and that. And it's like none of that. It's one of the most powerful things that I've learned being in recovery is that I have a choice. Now that choice can come in knowing something's coming up to make the choice, but a lot of times in life it's nanoseconds. Always. So it's like something will happen and I'm completely fucking aware that I am okay, here's a great example. Before a week before the convention, something happened. So I completely stepped out of my square with my wife, and we had an argument, which, you know, every blue moon, we're not perfect, and we do have a screaming match here and there. And she did something that I totally disagreed with, and I was fucking boiling, like I was livid. And we just went and got these amazing fajitas, and as soon as she said it, I was like, observe, feel your emotions, observe it. And I kept looking at the fajitas and I'm like, I'm gonna throw these motherfuckers. So I'm like, no, don't do that. Get up and go wash your hands. Your face is greasy. Wash your face. So I get up and do that, and I'm just cooking. Like, it's just escalating. And I go back in there and she says some shit, and I'm like, you don't know shit about having a fucking dad or what a dad's like. You never had any. So boom, straight kicked in the crotch. And then I pick up the fucking fajitas, sling it into the fucking kitchen, completely aware that I'm in the wrong, that I'm causing fucking harm, but I'm like, fuck it.
Burn it all down.
Then I grab what I think is my vape and my phone and my car keys. I go storming out the kitchen like a little baby, and slide on the food I just spilt. But I caught myself. But I think she seen me, and I can't roll out like that. So I just knock more shit off the counter, and I'm like, clean it up, bitch. And I fucking walk out, and I get in my car, and I fucking turn it on. I'm looking for my vape, and I look down, and it's a goddamn TV remote. I left my phone and my vape in there, and I'm like, I'm not about to go back in there and give that bitch the satisfaction of fucking me.
Sneak in.
Right. So I fucking leave, and like I'm completely aware of it, to the point to where I'm calling friends that are going to co-sign my bullshit, and none of them do. So I'm now getting mad at them, and they know that I'm in a fucked up headspace driving around. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to get high on pad thai and donuts. I'm just going to eat the most expensive meal I can. I call Matt, and he's fucking at his daughter's birthday party. As soon as he answers, I'm like, in his ear, he's like, I'm at my daughter's birthday party. And I'm like, fine, and hang up the phone. So fucking fuck him.
Right.
He's got a life. These are my problems, damn it.
Oh, look at me. I'm at my daughter's birthday party.
Right. I'm a good dad. So it just was fucking crazy, and I was acting like insane and just immature and like a baby, and was completely 100% aware of it. But it was like something else was like causing me to, like, I don't know, dude, I just could not control it. I could have, but I appreciate the hindsight for what it is. Yeah. But that same type of thing was, again, playing itself out at the convention. And, you know, I did eventually talk to my sponsor, and he said, like, you know, this thing, that the argument me and Megan had, can't go just swept under the rug, throw a Band-Aid over it. You need to have a talk about it. And the day before we went to the convention, we went to the gym at like 6 a.m, and we stayed out of the car and we talked about it, and it was very empowering and it felt good. But it was like that carried me throughout the day. I actually went to a meeting later that night and shared about it. And the funny thing is, my assistant, Lil Mike, was mad at me, and he did the exact same thing that I did to my friend. He called me and hung up on me and didn't answer the phone and was ignoring me. And I was thinking that he did that, but I wasn't sure. So I was getting livid about it. And I'm like, wait a minute, how can I be pissed at him for doing that when I just fucking did this to my dude fucking 2 days ago?
Exactly.
But my sponsor, I'm starting to trail down a rabbit hole. My sponsor was like, you had to have this talk. We had the talk. It was empowering and it was uplifting for the next 2 days until we're driving to Chicago. And then all of a sudden, every semi driver is radioing everyone ahead. And they're like, here he comes, cut him off. Here he comes, cut him off.
Right.
And then it was just the world against me again.
So forgive my ignorance on this, but so you're in Chicago and you went to a meeting in Chicago, you're saying, correct?
No, this was all week before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you did need to go to a meeting in Chicago, is that something that's just available? Like, yeah. There's just a meeting most of the time somewhere, right?
The bigger the cities, the more accessible things like that are. So they usually have like, sometimes they'll have them at night or whatever. But there's like an app that I have that gives me access and lets me know of like current locations that have them. So yeah, and that's something that I've done plenty of times. And we actually, the whole group of us does things like that. So we actually thought about doing that, but we chose to opt out and ride bikes around downtown, which isn't good, bad, right, or wrong. But that's totally accessible. And I'm, that's what I've always done. That's kept me here this long. Right. And like, I want to think that like it is me that's making me aware of all this, but it's not. It's just, the constant, the mirror in front of my face and things that I do for my recovery to see this, because it all plays out, into life. Like every scenario I had with like drugs and my addiction and my issues, I can take that and replicate it and apply it in every area of my life, and it'll work if I want it to work. Gotcha. The only problem is I just, sometimes falls or shit. I'm human.
Sure. We all do, for sure.
Yeah.
I've gotten mad before. Like I used to have, I think I mentioned it before on this podcast, but I used to have like an embarrassing temper problem. Like looking back, I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And it's something I very actively work on, but I'll still have buttons. Like my wife will just say something or do something, and I'm just 0 to 1,000, and even though I know, I'm sitting here telling myself like, you're being ridiculous, I cannot turn it off. You know what I mean? So I know that feeling. It's like almost surreal. And especially how you like, well, I just woke up and I had a normal life, and now I'm fucking thinking about leaving. You know what I mean? I'm gonna burn my shop down on the way out the door too. You know what I mean? It's just fucking crazy. So I totally understand that feeling.
Man, that's good to hear you say that, and knowing that like, you never struggle with addiction, because one, I either thought it was something in the water where I grew up, or two, like maybe this is things just all us dope fiends deal with, and it's like, it's just part of the human condition.
I think for me, it's when she says something that it's real, that's truthful, that I hate about myself. So she brings up like, I don't even know a scenario necessarily, but it's, I usually get more upset when she's right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
She's like, see, Josh, I told you you ain't got no business running lines.
Right, you shouldn't be outlining. Well, fuck you. I do remember too, like, and you brought a little bit about awards up, and I sent you a text back about my thoughts on awards, which is an interesting topic since I put on a show and we have awards and everything. But I remember the time when it seemed like it was the most important thing to me as well. And I think there is a point in an artist's career where it's probably important for your self-esteem and for your client build up. But I remember when I was entering Tattoo of the Day at every show. My life used to be on the road. Like I was at a show every month basically. And I remember I was racking up these Tattoo of the Day. Like I hadn't missed the Tattoo of the Day for several shows. And it was Bob Tyrell that called me out on it. And he's like, how many trophies do you have? And, I was like, I don't know, like 120. Huh? I was all proud of it. And he's like, yeah, dude, we get it. You're fucking good. Like, do you need trophies to constantly tell you that? Why don't you give some of these new guys a shot, And it really hit me hard, and I was like, yeah, what am I doing? You know what I mean? So like, for me at this point now, like I never enter anything myself, And if my client decides to enter because they're super excited about their tattoo, I tell them to take the trophy home. You know what I mean? Like, that might sound like some sort of humble brag. I definitely needed it at one point in my life. But at this point, it's definitely something that when I'm tattooing, the stress of is this going to win an award or not, it's too much for me. I just want to focus on the task at hand, you know?
Man.
So.
I love that. Man, I never knew Bob Tyrell was such a fucking hater, though.
Right.
I'm just like,
Well, don't forget, too, like I mentioned it before, he's the same guy. He's giving me a lot of really great advice.
Me too.
When I had undercut him without realizing it at a show.
Me too.
For a portrait, yeah. And
Me
he
too.
came up. Yeah. He laid it out for me. He's like, put his arm around my shoulder, and he's like, you look around, and I'm looking around. I'm like, what are you trying to show me? And he's like, this is one giant tattoo shop. Mm-hmm. So I'm your coworker. Yeah. And you just stepped on my dick. I just told this guy a fair price for a portrait. Yeah. And and you are going to just do it cheaper. So you just took him away from me. So you're going to do it cheaper. Wow. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a fucking dick. I never thought about it. I was just in hustle mode. Like, I'm here. I'm going to tattoo. Maybe I'll win a tattoo. Maybe I'll win a trophy. You know. So that's so I don't know if Bob remembers this at all or if he's listening to this podcast. But thanks, man. Thanks for fucking setting me straight.
Well, and that's awesome. And so I love Bob. That didn't happen with me, but it was real close. But Bob bitched me out. This was 12, 13 years ago. He bitched me out for my pricing being too low. And him and I both were doing portraits. Yep. And here's the thing. We both, this was sheer accident. He was on the other side of the convention. We both were doing the exact same portrait.
Oh, wow.
And didn't even realize it. And it wasn't like Frankenstein or Marilyn Monroe or like fucking John like it was a rare portrait too. So the chances on two people getting it at a show anyways, but he was further ahead. We did the exact same portrait, which that was amazing. I couldn't believe it because after everyone got kicked out of the show, it was just me and I heard one other machine going. It was Bob, right? Well, I'm tattooing and I got a late start. So I'm just up. I got the neck on. I'm like doing the drop shadow under the chin of this portrait and the show's already closed. So I'm in for an all-nighter. Bob's been doing the same portrait. Anyways, here comes Jack Rudy walking up to my booth. I've never met Jack Rudy, and I instantly was scared and nervous. And he came up, and once he saw what I was tattooing, because he was over kicking with Bob, he almost got pissed. He looked at me. He's like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "Did you know Bob's over there and is tattooing the exact same portrait as you? The only difference is he's 6 hours ahead of you." And I was like,
so he was also on the chin drop shadow then.
Yeah, right. Ayo. Yeah. Anyways, that's right. And that was fucking awesome. I couldn't believe it. And I realized, holy shit. And once Jack couldn't believe it either, I had no clue. Bob had no clue. Jack's like, and out of all my years of doing shows, I have never witnessed this happen.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
So Jack went over and told Bob. And
he's putting the cables on Bob.
Dude, I'm fucking nervous as shit thinking, holy shit, I just got thrown into a one-on-one face-off with Bob Tyrell, and I didn't even know I was signing up for it. That became the talk of the show. So so Rudy went back to tell Bob. When Bob finished his tattoo, he came over to meet me too, and Jack brought him over, and I'm like, fuck, At this point, I'm 3 years into my tattoo career, and these two legends are, and now all of a sudden I just got thrown into the ring with one of them. So immediately I went from wanting to do the best tattoo of my life to now I've got to, They went to the after party, told everybody there was a buzz. And so guess what? Everyone was, and even the show promoter is like, well, we'll see. Meaning like how my portrait turns out. This is an epic story as long as mine's good. If mine's shit, then this don't mean shit, right? And I knew that and I gave it my all. And the very next day, Bob came out of giving a seminar, wanted to see mine, looked at mine, compared it to his, broke it down, and told me why mine is better. which
Really?
was
Wow. That's
which
amazing.
was mind-blowing. In the humility of him, he just got out of seminar teaching how to do black and gray portraits. Now he's telling me why mine's better than his. I'm just like blown away. He was like, man, who are you? I didn't even know. He's like, man, can I get your number? We should stay in touch. I'm sitting here thinking like, holy shit. And yeah, this is when I go into your speech problems, like, yes, number good. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know? Yes, I
You just
have
hand him your
phone.
phone. I don't know how to use this. Yeah.
That's right. But anyway, so that was fucking amazing. But in that, then it led to, well, how much did you charge him to do that? And when I told him, he was like pissed. One, because the quality was good. Yeah. And that's when he gave me a lecture of putting proper value on myself and on everyone else. And that was one of my first early, someone helping me grow in who I am and my self-worth. And I got bitched out from Bob after that, like, coincidental, epic, story that happened. I couldn't fucking believe it. Yeah, you just never know. Yeah, man.
I've never.
So with that, is that something that you would carry on the tradition of? Because you know how that impacted you, right? So if you were at a show and you saw somebody doing beautiful work and found out their prices were, is that something that you would take them aside?
Thank you,
say,
Josh.
hey, man,
that is something I've carried the tradition on from that moment forward, as I had to step into it and grow into it and fall down and then grow. He gave me the permission and pointed me in the direction, Matt, go that way. Well, that's when I began my journey of growing that way. And along the way, my passion for it and even what I've learned has then caused me to, turn around and want to empower everyone around me, whether it's at a show, in the shop I'm in. And that's why I think that's when Tattoo Business Mastery may have began in me. Yeah. As learning and then wanting to empower other artists to learn what we've learned,
Isn't that interesting how you never know what you say, how it's going to impact somebody?
That's right.
Like I've had people, since I've been tattooing for 30 years now, people will write me and they'll be like, 22 years ago I was at a show and you said this to me and I never forgot it. And I'm always like, wow, like you really do have to be careful with your words because they can carry a lot a lot of weight.
That's right.
That's an amazing story, especially since Bob affected both of us in that way.
Yeah.
I'd love it if he's listening, or somebody shows this to him. I would love him to know the impact that he's had on our lives and our careers. Because I'm sure he's affected thousands of artists.
Man,
right? Bob was one of those guys that, like, you'd see his work in magazines, and then you'd meet him, and he's like, as you know, he's the nicest guy. Mm-hmm. But then you see his work in person. And you're like, you're already fucked up about how good it was in the magazine. Yeah. And then you see it heal like silk in person, and you're just like, motherfucker. Mm-hmm. And depending on where you're at in your career, I remember being like, well, fuck, why am I even trying? Man. When this is what he's doing. Yeah. He started late in the game. You know what I mean? Like he started later. Yeah. I believe he was getting tattooed. I believe he was getting tattooed a lot by Paul Booth, and I know Tom Renshaw kind of took him under his wing. But I remember seeing his stuff in person for the first time and just being like, good for you, bro, but I fucking hate myself now. Yeah. Because he was doing shit that I hadn't achieved at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's awesome. Good shit, man.
And, it's when just that value of what Bob Tyrell had taught you, I just asked you if you carried it on, later. It's funny because some of those values you still instilled me. And another fun part, which could maybe be all the things that I basically let eat my lunch over the weekend. Well, shit, I can't even blame it on that. It's my people pleasing. So boom, both my clients come, they're my homies, and I go ahead and throw them the homie hookup, which is completely 100% against everything that we stand for. Because, I've grown to believe that, like, if you're my buddy and I want work from you, me being your friend, I'm paying top dollar for that because I'm supporting you and your family and your adventures and your business. But the people pleaser in me, I was like, yeah, you just give me so and so. And then I told my other friend the exact same fucking thing. And then, go to the show, and I show up, and there's like some students from Tattoo Business Mastery there. And then when I talked to Robbie on Sunday, we were talking about money and weird relationships people have with it, and like my struggles with it, and where I'm at, and how far I've grown. And was like being completely transparent. And I was like, look, dude, like, I fucking work with Matt, and like we studied this shit. I've been doing it for like 5 years, and I still have the same issues with it, because it's something it's a process to come through and to grow through, and it's always going to remain that way. And I even told him what I did. I was like, I gave 2 of my dudes the homie hookup, and I was like, good, right, or wrong? No, it's not. But if I'm staying in integrity with myself,
right.
And I could have said that at the end, because they would have been more than happy to pay my original rate up front and not had no quarrels about it. But instead of doing it on the front end, I devalued the whole experience versus saving it for the back end, or not even doing it at all. And it was just like a combo of all this shit on top of everything that just kind of made it for less than desirable weekend. But it was still, I had to remain in gratitude. And it's like, I even told Robbie that. I was like, look, I was a dope fiend 9 years ago. If you would have been telling me, I would have been flying around, because we were just sharing some of what we'd learned being in the Tattoo Business Mastery. And how like it is profound and it works, but it's like, man, it's hard to like stay in that mindset a lot. It's tiring, like always trying to choose to be in the higher path, or to be the person that has a positive impact, and always being positive, at least till we can. It gets tiring, and it can get heavy.
And it's funny you say that, and it's probably situational, because you say that as if walking through shit, causing harm all around you, being off all weekend, devaluing your client, like that's not tiring.
It totally was. Totally was.
Like, which is more tiring, having a whole shit suck weekend, or like fucking trying to pull yourself out of it before the weekend's all shit? I'm not saying that it's maybe not tiring to try and fucking be positive, but being miserable can wear you out too.
Right. It can. But I think what it is like, it's
kind of like you work in the program. You know what I'm saying? You've been working it for 9 years now.
Well,
or the process, right?
I was, yeah. You're
in personal growth, you could say it's tiring sometimes to live with the mirror in front of your face and work the program, yet you continue to work it and you're faithful. What's worse? Just like falling back and becoming dope fiend on the streets again? That's tiring too. Which is more tiring? What's worth it? If both are going to be tiring, now what?
Well, totally. And the more righteous path is the best path. And I can say that with conviction and experience. So it definitely pays off, and it's better, and it helps everyone out that's in proximity of you, and not. But sometimes that like ornery, self-centered, it just feels good to cause a little bit of harm, dude. It does. Or like tell a motherfucker to fuck off or whatever. It feels good, but ultimately, when you got to now get the broom out and sweep up your side of the street, it's like, for what? For that fleeting feeling of like, yeah, that felt real good. And it's like, it didn't in long term. It just felt good momentarily. And it now the tiring part begins with the cleanup. If you choose to clean up, because there's some motherfuckers that just cause harm and be dicks and not even be on their radar that it was even harmful, or if it was, like, who gives the fuck? But I can't continue to live like that.
Yeah, I've known a few people too who will just come in like a fucking tornado, fuck shit up, and then they're like, I don't know, the universe just has a way of taking care of me. And it's like, no, it's all your fucking friends around you that are cleaning up your shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've definitely witnessed that before. And and you brought up money earlier, and I learned kind of as I've mentioned before, working with Matt, Matt's been coaching me, and I've raised my rates. I haven't raised them in a long time, but I still go through that people pleasing mode as well. And as I'm booking, I've got a guy flying out from, old friend from a long time ago, and I was like, I've raised my rates, but for you, I'm going to do this. And immediately, Nikki's like, why are you doing that? And then he even wrote me, and he's like, hey, I really appreciate that, but I want to pay you for what you're worth. So like, I was taking that away from him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As Matt's taught me, it's like I wasn't even doing him the favor I thought. I almost maybe even slightly offended him. You know what I mean? And he's like, man, hey, I appreciate that, but we never asked you for that.
Man.
And I'm putting him in this uncomfortable position now where I have to do this like balancing act of getting him back over to my newer rates, right?
That's
so,
right. Because in one way, he's saying I want Josh Carlton. I want Joshua Carlton and who he is today. You're right. And so by you saying, hey, old friend, good to see you. And this is who I am today. But for you, I won't be me. I'll try and be the old me. And he's like, why? I want you today.
Right. Exactly. And like, we're adults here, and you have to understand that when you reach out to me and you're going to fly in and travel and all that, you're a grown ass person that knows this is not a cheap thing. So he didn't expect any kind of a deal. So I just devalued both of us.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's fucking powerful.
It's something I'm learning. I'm learning, working through this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, this shit helps me so fucking much, dude. It just like climax, dude. It's like, that feels so good knowing that he's got the same problems I got. God.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like it was almost not even almost. It was embarrassing to get that email back. I thought he'd be like, "That's awesome, bro. Thank you," and he was just like. It was like uncomfortable to read, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I put him in an awkward position.
Oh, what a gift, though! What a gift the universe just gave you.
Yeah, for sure. So now, and what a great client. And that shows, like, because I'm still like, well, maybe I am worth that. It's like, even though I've been tattooing 30 years, even though I've got whatever accolades, I still am like, maybe I'm a charlatan. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's just something I have to work through. That's just, and I'm going to guess a lot of our listeners go through at least phases like that.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Because, when we see people struggling for this and for that, and like, the salesman, like you go to buy a car, they have to be such a salesman. Here we are, books closed. You know what I mean? It's like, we're not trying to push our shit on anybody. They're clamoring to get in. Most tattoo artists are really, really busy, And so, I get that survivor's guilt going on for sure sometimes.
Yeah. I love that. And it makes me wonder, because what did you just say a few seconds ago? Most tattooers at least go through a season of this. Is that what you said? And I think that's true to the tattooers that are still trying to grow, right? Yeah, but the ones that just settled, this is how we do it. This is my rates forever. I've been charging this and doing it like this since 97. Unless they get shook up, they don't experience this because they fucking are stuck in the way they've always done it.
Yeah. And another thing that our listeners that are tattooers need to understand, I hear a lot of tattoo artists bitching and bitching and bitching about their clients. It's what they do most of the time. When you start to get what your value actually is worth, guess what? Your clients completely change. It's like totally a tier system, right? And when you get up to where you're doing really beautiful work and you're getting paid what you should be getting paid, those clients that you bitch about, for the most part, I'd say 90% at least, they're gone.
That's right. That's because something in you changed, right?
Right. Yeah.
So back to starting that out, if you are a tattooer that bitch about your clients, most of the time that actually tells us more about you than them.
100%.
You're the common denominator,
all throughout my life, I've always noticed with myself and other people, it's like if the same shit keeps happening to you over and over and over, if you're constantly a victim and shit's always happening to you, again, common denominator is like, is the problem them, or maybe it's time to look inwards and be like, am I fucking making the same mistake over and over again? What do they call the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
That's right. Yeah, man.
If I am not the problem, there is no solution.
Boom.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. You say that all the time.
Yeah.
And this is why when shit starts going south, what causes you to realize that on Sunday versus Saturday?
I'm not my self-centered baby. the fucking like I'm gonna take my ball and go home.
Yeah.
Because like it's, you know, I always say that I'm self-centered in nature, and this is just proof in the pudding that I am self-centered. Like I have to constantly fight to not be self-centered, because ultimately it's always about me. Not that I am the center of the universe, but it revolves around me. So like with that mindset already impregnated in me every second of every day, and constantly having to put it aside and be like, that's not true at all. That's not true. I'm part of something bigger. People, they matter. Their fucking emotions and feelings and thoughts and their negativity and their positivity and their dreams and their nightmares all matter. It's not just me. But a lot of times, you know, it's, you know, from being that way so much, and this is an excuse because it doesn't mean that, but just for clarification purposes, from being programmed with that for the majority of my life, and now choosing this different path for eight years and some change, it's still in the process of like, I have to be cognizant of it. It's no longer just habit forming. So I'm like forming those habits, but occasionally I like to fucking poke the bear and stay there.
Yep. But at the same time, you've grown so much in this area. So even though on one hand you're like, I'm self-centered, I see you be selfless all the time, right? But it doesn't have to be an either or, like either you're self-centered or you care about people and realize they got feelings and dreams too. I think the power play is for you to know that, stay in your own power, meaning because it's not just about all them too. We need to be in our own power, empowering ourselves and feel good. And that's not selfish. And if so, it's a healthy form of it. You got to walk in self-love and fill your cup.
Right.
And so you got to walk in your power, receive that, allow that. It's okay to feel good. You're not supposed to be the martyr for them to have a good weekend. It's how can you be in your power and have good and empower them. And they're in their power and everyone's having a good time. It's not an either or, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, you know, one thing I wanted to share, the reason why I brought up the glorious story of meeting Bob Tyrell and Jack Rudy in on that occasion, right? Because that was a monumental moment in my career, and that I got to meet him and accidentally do the same portrait as Bob Tyrell, and I ended up tying with Jack Rudy for best of show that weekend. That's awesome. Like mind-blowing, right? And built two relationships and became friends with legends that didn't know even who I was yesterday, right? So that was cool. Check it, though. So it was one of the most epic shows of my life. Leading up to this show, I had just went out on my own and left the shop I had come up in, and that's when, and I just separated, you know, I went out on my own, was all alone, and just like left my mentor and everything. So I was already a scared little boy, vulnerable. This would be the first show I've ever done alone, right? But that's okay because my buddy Kyle Cotterman's got his booth right next to mine. So I at least get to go, and me and Kyle are buddies, right? Except for the day before the show, Kyle bowed out. Guess who he gave his booth to right next to mine? The whole crew I just left.
Oh, fuck.
Right? Who all decided to hate my guts right now because it's fresh, right?
Yeah.
They beat me down there. I can't leave town till late. I get hemmed up, stuck in Dayton. Now I'm leaving to go to Richmond, Virginia, leaving Ohio at like 10 or 11 p.m. at night. And I'm already driving all night long. This is Thursday. I'm going to get there in time for Friday morning to set up and get checked by the health department and start this show on no sleep. So I'm already showing up on an all-nighter. Guess what happens on my way there? I'm driving an old pickup truck. I get terrible food poisoning. And I'm driving through the mountains of Virginia and pulling over and like literally terrible food poisoning. I remember I get off this exit in the mountains and I'm up at this gas station like losing everything. I couldn't even make it inside. I'm out in the bushes. Next thing you know, I'm surrounded by sheriffs, you know, and they're out there almost guns drawn like, what am I doing? And I just tell them like I'm sick, you know. And they instantly had empathy, and one of the officers like, I just got over that, man, you know, and it was obvious that, you know, that I did. So what I'm getting at is by the time I got to the show, I'm depleted, no sleep. I've lost all my insides, and I'm already fighting defeat, and I don't have a crew. I don't have a Megan or no one with me. What'd you roll? 4 deep to Chicago? 5 people to help you carry your shit. I'm showing up on no sleep, sick as fuck. I don't have one person to help me carry, and I got loads to set up my booth. And I go and set up my booth, and I realize my new perceived enemies are like right next to me. I'm like, oh gosh, right? I'm carrying loads in. I hang my banner up first, right? When I go back out to make my next trip, I come back. My shit's all been fucked up with. My banner's been taken down. Like they're fucking with my shit. Jeez. I'm like, oh no. To the point, this is the first and only time I've ever done this. When I set up, I didn't leave my machines in my booth in case they were going to try and take my ability to even tattoo away. And I remember keeping my Hawk machine in my pocket. Like, even if I go back to my booth and everything's trash, there's a supplier, at least I got a machine. I'll get a needle and win, right? But what I'm getting at is all these odds were against me. Nothing was going right. And I was riddled with defeat. Just throw in the towel. No one here even fucking cares. They don't even know you. These motherfuckers don't like you. They're trying to fuck up your shit. You're on no sleep. You're sick. Fucking fold. And I was faced with a choice. And that's where the fucking fighter in you, that's where you reach deep and find your inner Goggins. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And sometimes and this gets to the point when enough Murphy's Law happens, enough shit comes against you, a warfare spirit will jump on me. Like, I'm experiencing this much resistance. Oh, I've seen this before. It's a clue that something amazing is about to happen. And this resistance is trying to take me out, to get me to fold, to get me to be like, well, fuck everybody, to rob myself of the miracle that's coming on at the top of this mountain. Right. So I love it because it's a gray area when shit's just kind of shitty or going wrong and it's fucking with you. But when enough shit it all comes crashing down, to me, it's easier to surrender and be like, well, fuck it. But no, this is a clue to a miracle on the other side. So the last thing I'm going to do is fold. That's what you want me to do. The last thing I'm going to do is quit. That's what they expect me to do. I'm fucking rising up. And somehow I found some sort of fight in me against all odds and ended up, doing the portrait, meeting Bob Tyrell, him impacting and changing my life, meeting Jack Rudy, tying for best of show. And guess what? That success alone shut up my enemies. Immediately. Yeah. I didn't have to speak for myself. I didn't have to defend myself. It was like God fought my battles for me. I just had to show up and show out and stay true to who I am, put my head down no matter what. And guess who came out shining on the other side?
That's amazing.
Yeah. None of that was easy.
Yeah.
It's a cool story. Easy for me to tell it now, but I'm saying I lived that shit.
Right.
And I'm bringing up, like, we all will have shit that goes wrong on our travels or whatever. It's who we fucking decide to be in the moment is the opportunity, is the gift, and it's also the challenge. And I fucking fail at it all the time. We can all relate to the stories you've shared today where I was like, fuck it, Mm-hmm. And we learn from both. Yeah, man.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Hip, thanks for always being so authentic and fucking sharing or keeping it 100.
Yeah, dude.
I love that about you. He seems to not ever be plagued with the too much ego to he throws himself under the bus and will admit and commit to anything and be like, hey, right. I fall down, I fuck up. And that's creates safety amongst us all. So I can feel safer about admitting my flaws too. So
same here, for sure.
Appreciate that about you. And I'm not trying to take that power away by me telling a triumphant story.
Well, no, it's fucking cool because it's like hearing that is like instantly I was thinking, well, fuck my week. And it really wasn't. I think it's more maybe I'm photoshopping how it really went, because ultimately it was good. And I didn't have nowhere near a battle as like what you had going up against Bob Tyrell that wasn't even known, and everything that led up to that. But it's still like, irregardless if the stressor is this big and minute, or it's a giant mountain in the eyes of anyone, both can take you out of the game if you choose to let them. Totally.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And of course, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So that's just one of those scenarios that, like, you were fighting giants that day, weekend, and it led up to a great reward. And it's like, who knows? Like, maybe if I would have chose a more righteous path to go and handle it in a more productive, practical way, like, what would my reward have been? Now, would I do now? Okay, this is a good question. Do you do that in spite for the reward?
For starters, I didn't know any reward was coming.
Right. So, but past experience, because you said, "Oh, I know what this is. I know."
Yeah. Yeah. When enough fucking Murphy's Law shows up, a resistance. External resistance. I'm not talking about the internal resistance. We all have to fight our own monkey mind that shows up to resist you and the very thing you said you wanted to do and be today.
Right.
We all got to overcome our own internal fucking resistance.
Right.
But when enough Murphy's Law external resistance starts showing up, I almost get excited. Like, this is too fucking crazy. So this is the trap that takes everyone out, and I can see through it that this is the evidence that there's fucking magic. On the other, this battle is worth the fight, and I don't even know what we're fighting for. I just know it's not time to give up.
Right. And you know what? Me even making that statement, I want to retract that because it sounds like I'm just devaluing. It was a great fucking time. I got to spend friends with loved ones. I've met a fucking artist that's in your class that I've always admired and thought was a sweetheart, Robbie, and a bunch of other people complimented like us in this podcast. So like, it was completely embedded with blessings and fucking rewards and wins. So all in all, it was great. But traveling can be stressful for sure.
It can be, and it's again in the moment. Who do we become in the moment? And Josh has brought this up in the past. Because I always think it's funny when we're in airport scenarios or on a plane, and either we just got delayed or whatever. It's always funny to me to observe so many people. We're all in this together, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all on this plane, but so many people individually get so put off by it, as if this was a direct offense to just you.
Yeah.
Sits in seat 24A. That's right.
It's me and everybody else's background. You know what I mean?
Right. And this is where Josh has brought up before, the people that are in a traffic jam that complain about traffic, but you are traffic.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. And it's the same deal. Like when bad shit's happening, it's like, well, it's not just fucking happening to you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's happening to all of us. Just missed this flight. All of us, got it delayed. Not just you.
Every other artist at that show had their own stress they were going through, or their own client, or they're battling their self.
So I have traveled with people when shit don't go right. We miss the flight or whatever. And I've traveled with people where we can all be like, well, that's fucking a huge bummer, and take it on the chin. But now what are we going to be in what's next? Let's be in the solution, as you always say. And I've traveled with people that it's such a blow, then none of them are in the solution, and they're just like fucked. And what ends up happening, we're making a bad situation way worse.
Right.
And it's like, it's already happening. What are we going to be in the moment? Can we still find the miracle? Can we still find a spark of light in this dark moment? The answer is always yes. But the person that's going to find that is the one who continues to look for it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we keep looking for what's wrong with this scenario, you're going to find it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we look for what could be right out of this, you're going to find it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it sucks when you're already traveling in a scenario that sucks. It sucks being with people that suck when shit sucks. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's way cooler to be with
company.
That's right. And I'd rather be with creative overcomers when we all know we don't even have to talk about how bad this sucks. But now what are we gonna do? Well, guess we're fucking stuck in Norway, you know? And I love it. I've been stuck in Norway. And even though I was like, man, I can't believe I was really wanting to see my sweetheart. I was going to go home and see my kids tonight. And now I can't, like, fuck. But then I had to switch. Well, I wonder about these people here in Oslo. And I got to go discover, you know what I'm saying? I had to choose. As bad as this sucks, now what? And guess what? Miracles and magic happened, but I think it's because I kept myself open
to the possibility
in the midst of this suck ass situation.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, for sure.
And even if that's tiring, I still think it's worth it and beats the tiredness of just being like everything sucks. That's tiring too.
Yeah, and nobody wants to be around that. You know, I fucking hate being around people like that, and I've been that guy, so I definitely get it. You know.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Because it's gonna happen. What do you always say? There's another problem coming. It's got your name on it.
Right.
It's coming down the pike. Right.
Yep. This is just practice for that one.
Yeah. And because Josh and I have talked about this before, so I also want to commend you that even in the moment, because we all have off weekends, off shows, off days, and we can identify it in the moment. You know, I want to be real clear to our listeners, because I'll identify in the moment whether this is taking me out, I'm going south, power of choice. What am I going to... It's not always easy for me to decide that, or just like, oh, Clemmer, what would Clemmer do? He's just going to decide to make this fucking beautiful. Let's skip rainbow. Like, it ain't fucking that easy. It's just worth it, you know. Every single time it's worth it. But I want to commend you, Hip, for even pushing through and fighting, because to all you listeners who've ever played in a band or been a musician, we can relate to this. You know how sometimes you get up on stage to play a show and the music just flows out of you and you can tell the audience receives it. It hits them in the chest. Beautiful things happening. You can almost see like internal operations are happening on the insides of the chest of the people, and the conductor in the flow through this beautiful gift and vessel called music, right? And what it does on the inside of everybody. But then there's other shows where you go up and you're playing the exact same set, and there seems to be no power behind it, and it seems like the words that are coming out of my mouth and the tones that are coming out of Josh's rig don't hit them in the chest, and they fall and hit the floor before it ever penetrates them. And you know it in the middle of the show, like somehow this show ain't landing. We just ain't got no power. It's not landing. We know it, and we don't want, and we're trying to play through it. Well, let's turn this around. This next song, we'll fucking get it. And you can play the whole show, and the whole show is just off. You leave backstage and feel like you never penetrated it, but you fought through it the whole time. And we just have those days. We have those weekends where you know shit ain't, for something, how this ain't landing. Somehow I'm not in my power, and I'm aware of it. I'm trying to find my power and can't, right?
Right.
And we got to chalk up like that just wasn't the best show, you know? And so I commend you. Yeah. I commend you for being in the middle of the show, realizing like something is off, but yet you keep playing. You're trying, you know. Yeah, man.
And come Sunday, look out.
Yeah, because I am enlightened.
That's right, dude. Come to my solo act in my room Sunday night.
Yeah.
You know, something funny is there's been these traveling Buddhist monks, and they can't take money from you, but they'll give you like their food. And they were at Houston, and I've probably got the Bhagavad Gita, like 30 books that they've given me just because like I felt them and had discernment that like they're just genuine caring people. So like in Houston, I gave him some amount of money and then gave him a free t-shirt this time. The dude's like, I'm about to go cook, man. You want me to bring you some? I'm like, sure. And he brought me some, and it was good. But like just talking to them, it was Sunday. I was bullshitting. I'm like, so let me get this straight. Like, you guys only have sex once you're married, and then you only have sex to procreate. And he was like, well, yeah, the whole reason of procreation is to procreate and make more humans. And I'm like, so after you have a baby, then from there on out, you guys don't have sex from that? He's like, no. And I'm like, what? I was like, you don't masturbate? He's like, no. I'm like, how long you been a monk? He's like, 2 years. I'm like, you haven't masturbated in 2 years? He's like, no. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here, dude. So like, I'm hearing this and I'm like, man, I really ain't got it that bad. Fuck, I just hit a lick in the shower on the way down here, dude.
Make sure you film hip from the waist up to next episode.
No, you're just like, you're a liar.
Right. Well,
Right.
it's inspiring, but at the same time, it was like, man, I just wonder, like, I don't know. That's dedication. That's discipline. And from listening to him talk and seeing it in his eyes, it's obviously some sort of freedom.
Yeah. I actually did the same thing for a couple years of my life.
Yeah.
That's a whole different conversation, isn't it?
Yeah. Next week on Tattoo Guardians podcast, how to not masturbate for Jesus.
But I thought you said they were Buddhists.
They are, but
Okay.
I mean, you know, fucking potato.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Guys, thanks for kicking it today again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your heart.
Yeah.
Hip and
Thank you guys for sharing yours.
on conventions. One last thing, since we were talking about conventions, I'd like to just serve our listeners with at the end is the power of the art form. You're there because the art form of tattooing, but really, and this is what we cover a lot, Tattoo Business Mastery is growing also in the art form of building relationships and the courage it takes for you at a show, you artists that are listening and watching, to go and build relationships with other artists, to go say hi, to go introduce yourself is scary. It takes courage. You could be jaded. Like I ran into an artist at the last show we were at together. She was a newer artist and she got hurt because the first maybe 2 to 4 artists in her booth she went to go and try and talk with, all cool guide her, gave her the shoulder, the cold shoulder. That made her go inward and close up and be like, oh, I guess I'm not going to make friends with other artists in the industry. And, you know, and somehow she encountered me and I got to pull her out of it. There was more than 4 artists at that show. She's going to allow herself to be robbed because she got rejected the first 4. And when she doesn't know, 5, 6, and 7 could be the best friends of the rest of her life. So I encouraged her to keep on going. And she did, and made relationships. And I was one of them. And she was this close to allowing herself to be robbed of that because she got a little rejection when she first stepped out of her comfort zone, shut down. And so I'd want to encourage all of you to, no matter what, even if the first 3 artists you go up to are straight dicks to you, to find your people, find your tribe by continuing to go. Now, if you say every booth and every person at the show was a complete dick to you, well, hey, then you got my respect that you went down the line, because I doubt that would happen. You know, but the power of shows, I believe, is the networking. That's how Josh and I and you all actually, you know, that's how Bob Tyrell changed our life. The power of the show isn't just the piece you're doing, it's the fucking culture and the people all around you. And I want to encourage all you artists to know that. Step out of your comfort zone. Go slap hands, as Hip says. It's where the real rewards are at. Wouldn't you agree, boys?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well said. Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. Good show.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in every week to watch and listen. We love reading all your comments. We definitely want to hear your comments about today's episode too, and your experiences at shows, or any takeaways you've gotten from today's conversation. Thank you, all of you, each and every one of you. This means a lot. You mean a lot. It's an honor serving you from our table. We'll see you next week.